what if the biggest threat to your relationship isn't another man, but your own silence? Think about it. How many times have you apologized before you even knew what you were apologizing for? How many nights have you swallowed your voice just to keep the peace? Most men don't lose respect in one big fight. They lose it slowly, almost invisibly. An inch here, a compromise there, until one day the man she admired, the man you admired, is gone. And the cruel twist is this: what you thought was keeping the love alive was actually killing it. Not harmony, but corrosion. Not closeness, but control. Look at her eyes. Do they shine the way they used to? Or do they glance past you as if you're just another piece of furniture in the room? You call it devotion. She feels it as disappearance, and deep down you know it's true. But here's the shift. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to play games. You don't have to tear her down to stand tall again. What you need are boundaries. Clear, calm, unshakable lines that tell her and yourself, this is who I am, and this is where I stand. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll walk away with a 5-line boundary checklist you can use word for word, a 3-step plan to exit escalating fights before they explode, and a reflection exercise to rebuild your confidence from the ground up. Your crown was never lost. You just stopped wearing it. Tonight you take it back. So how does it happen? How does a man go from confident, grounded, and admired to cautious, apologetic, and invisible in his own relationship? The collapse doesn't happen in one night. It's not one explosion, one betrayal, one fight that breaks him. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It starts small. She gets upset about something minor. Maybe you cancel plans with her at the last minute. Maybe you say something she doesn't like. She raises her voice and you think, it's not worth fighting about. So you cave. You apologize for the sake of peace. And in that moment, without realizing it, you trade a piece of your backbone for approval. The next time, it's easier to bend. She mocks your friends, and instead of saying, these people matter to me, you stay quiet. She criticizes your hobbies, and instead of defending your passions, you let them die off slowly. At first, you think you're just being considerate. But over time, consideration turns into silence, and silence turns into erasure. Here's the twist most men never see. She doesn't lose respect when you stand firm. She loses respect when you don't. Not boundaries, but weakness. Not clarity, but confusion. Every time you fold under pressure, every time you bite your tongue, you think you're protecting love, but you're actually suffocating it. And she feels it. In the beginning, her eyes lit up when you walked into the room. She looked at you like you were the man who could hold it all together. But slowly, that look changes. Now she glances past you. She rolls her eyes when you speak. She talks to you like you're not even in the room. Because in her mind, the man she chose has disappeared. But let's be clear. This isn't because women are cruel. It's because you've stopped being the man she was drawn to in the first place. And the irony is brutal. The very behaviors you thought would keep her close, agreeing to everything, staying quiet, apologizing for things you didn't do, are the exact things that make her drift. Not devotion, but decay. Not closeness, but corrosion. And the longer this continues, the more invisible you become. You stop seeing your friends. You stop doing the things that made you feel alive. You stop speaking up when something bothers you. Until one day, you wake up and realize you don't even recognize the man in the mirror. Ever asked yourself why you're so exhausted in your own relationship? Why you feel like you're walking on eggshells in the one place that's supposed to feel safe? It's not because relationships are hard, it's because you've abandoned yourself. The tragedy is that many men believe this is normal. They look at their friends' relationships and assume every man is secretly suffering in silence. They convince themselves love means losing yourself. Wrong. Dead wrong. Because there are men who've figured this out. Men who've built relationships where respect flows both ways, where they don't have to trade their dignity for peace. And here's the reality check. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to dominate. You don't need to play games. What you need is the courage to hold your ground, to say, this is who I am, this is what I value, and this is where I draw the line. Because when you stop holding the line, the relationship doesn't just suffer. You suffer. And once you lose yourself, you've already lost her respect, whether she leaves or not. That's why in the next part, I'll give you the exact words, the exact scripts that rebuild respect without war, scripts that protect you without shaming her, scripts that restore the man you used to be and the man you need to become again. If silence erases respect, then boundaries are what rebuild it. And the fastest way to draw those boundaries is through words. Simple, calm, and unshakable words. Not insults, not humiliation, not games. Just clear lines spoken with conviction. The kind of words that don't destroy love but protect it. Imagine this. She raises her voice, her tone sharp, the insult sliding in. You never listen. You don't care. You're just like everyone else. Most men either explode, trying to outshout her, or shrink, sitting in silence, waiting for the storm to pass. Both responses kill respect. One looks like chaos, the other looks like surrender. But a man with boundaries chooses a different path. He stays calm and says, I care about us, but I won't continue this conversation if it turns disrespectful. I'll step away, and we can talk again when we're calm. Then he follows through. He doesn't slam doors. He doesn't throw words back. He simply enforces a line. That line shows strength without aggression. Not fight, but firmness. Not retreat, but leadership. And in that steadiness, she feels what she was looking for all along: safety. Now picture another moment. She mocks your friends or rolls her eyes at the hobbies that give you energy. Most men fold under that pressure. They give up the friendships, the passions, the very parts of themselves that made them alive. But a man with boundaries doesn't. He answers calmly, I value my friendships and my time. That won't change. You don't have to love it, but you do need to respect it. Those words don't sound like rebellion. They sound like stability, not selfishness, but self-respect. And when you hold that line, she realizes she cannot rewrite your identity. She can only share your life. Then comes the oldest trick in the book, the threat to leave. She throws out, maybe I should just find someone else. The average man panics. He pleads, promises to change, begs for another chance, and every word of that begging hands her the crown, confirming her power. But the man who knows his worth doesn't chase. He replies, steady and certain, if that's how you feel, I won't stop you. But I won't stay in a relationship built on threats. It's not anger, it's not drama, it's calm freedom. And in that moment, the manipulation collapses. Because every threat rests on one assumption, that you fear losing her. When you show you don't, the entire game ends. And here's the truth. If she leaves after hearing that, you didn't lose her. You saved yourself from a lifetime of toxic power plays. If she stays, it's because she knows the threats no longer work. But it doesn't always come as a threat. Sometimes it comes as endless complaints. She tells you that you're not doing enough, that you don't care, that you've fallen short, while conveniently forgetting every sacrifice you've already made. The weak response is to defend yourself, listing every time you stayed up late for her, every effort, every compromise. But no matter what you list, it's never enough. The man with boundaries doesn't scramble. He looks her in the eye and says, "I hear your concerns, but I also know my effort deserves recognition. If you can't see that, maybe this isn't balanced." That's not defense. That's direction. You're not begging her to validate you. You're reminding her that respect is a two-way street. And finally, there's the escalation spiral. The argument builds, emotions rise, and she keeps pulling you deeper into the chaos. Most men either explode or collapse. One reaction destroys trust. The other destroys respect. But a man with boundaries takes the third path. He says calmly, "I won't continue like this. I'm leaving the room. When we can talk respectfully, I'll be back." And then he does exactly what he said. That follow-through is what matters most. Because words without action are empty. But words backed by action prove your boundaries aren't negotiable. Each of these scenarios shows the same pattern. You don't tear her down. You don't humiliate her. You don't play games. You simply hold the line. And when you do, something changes. She stops testing so hard because the tests no longer work. She stops escalating because the drama doesn't get a reaction. The manipulation falls flat, and in the silence that follows, something else grows. Respect. Here's the twist that shocks most men. She doesn't resent you for these boundaries. She craves them. She doesn't lose attraction when you say no. She loses attraction when you can't. Because deep down, she doesn't want a man who bends to every push. She wants a man who stands steady when the ground shakes. Not cruelty, but certainty. Not dominance, but stability. And when you start to speak this way, with calm conviction, with lines that cannot be erased, you stop being the man who begs for love. You become the man who commands respect. That's the turning point. That's when she looks at you differently. And that's when you finally look at yourself and recognize the man you were meant to be. But there's one question left. Why does she test you in the first place? Why the drama, the challenges, the emotional storms? If she loves you, why does she keep pushing? The answer isn't what you think. And once you understand it, everything changes. By now you've seen how boundaries can shift the dynamic in a relationship. But here's the deeper question. Why does she test you in the first place? Why the sudden mood swings, the emotional storms, the little comments that feel like traps? If she cares about you, why does she keep pushing? The answer is not what most men think. She doesn't test you because she hates you. She doesn't test you because she wants to break you down. She tests you because she needs to know you won't break. It's instinct, buried deep in her wiring, the same way a storm tests the strength of a tree. She doesn't sit down and plan it. Most of the time, she isn't even aware of it. But her biology demands it. And here's the paradox that destroys so many men. They assume these tests are attacks. They believe every conflict is a sign she's falling out of love. But the truth is the opposite. Each test is a plea. Not, prove you care by bending, but prove you're steady enough that I don't have to be. Every burst of emotion, every push, every challenge is her way of asking, without words, can I trust you not to collapse when life gets heavy? There was a study in Stockholm that revealed something fascinating. Researchers tracked couples during conflict. They measured stress hormones in women while arguments unfolded. And what they discovered was shocking. When men stayed calm and composed during female emotional outbursts, her stress dropped faster than when he tried to comfort her. Think about that. Her body literally calmed down when he refused to break. Not reassurance, but resilience. Not comfort, but composure. This is why so many men fail without even realizing it. They think the way to win love is to pour out every insecurity, to share every fear, to cry on her shoulder and ask her to be their rock. But what happens when the protector becomes the one who needs protection? Attraction evaporates, not intimacy, but corrosion. Not closeness, but collapse. She doesn't lose respect because you shared. She loses respect because you showed her you cannot be leaned on. I've seen it too many times. A man thinks he's building intimacy by confessing his struggles, exposing his depression, showing how broken he feels. Within weeks, she grows distant. Within months, she's texting her ex. Later, she tells her friends, "I just couldn't see him as a man anymore." It sounds cruel, but it's brutally honest. She doesn't want to be your therapist. She wants to be your partner. She doesn't want to carry your weight for you. She wants to know you can carry it yourself. And here's the twist most men miss. She doesn't test you because she hopes you'll fail. She tests you because she's praying you'll pass. Every storm is a search for solid ground. Every argument is an attempt to see if you'll crumble or hold. Every moment she pushes too hard is her way of asking, "Am I safe with you?" That's why the worst mistake you can make is treating her tests like attacks. If you see them as attacks, you either fight back with rage or collapse in defeat. Both responses destroy respect. But when you see them as opportunities, everything changes. You don't have to fight. You don't have to fold. You stand calm, steady, unshakable. And in that steadiness, she finds exactly what she was looking for all along. Because the safest place for a woman is not in control. It's not in ruling over you. It's not in pushing until you collapse. The safest place is in the presence of a man who cannot be shaken. Not cold, but calm. Not cruel, but consistent. Not distant, but steady. And when you embody that, the tests stop feeling like traps. They start feeling like proof. Proof that she chose a man worth trusting. Proof that she chose a man worth respecting. So what happens if you don't change? What happens if you keep apologizing for things you never did? Keep swallowing words that need to be spoken? Keep mistaking silence for love? The cost isn't just the relationship. The cost is you. At first, it seems small. You give up a night out with your friends to avoid conflict. You stop playing the sport you love because she called it a waste of time. You say yes when every fiber of your being wants to say no. You tell yourself it's just compromise, that this is what couples do. But it's not compromise. It's corrosion. It's not harmony. It's self-betrayal. Over time, the erosion spreads. The man you were, the man she was drawn to, begins to fade. Your voice lowers. Your shoulders slump. You hesitate before you speak, always calculating how she might react. The fire that once made you magnetic burns smaller and smaller, until one day it's nothing but smoke. And she sees it. She feels it. She can't unsee the man who used to lead, now living as a shadow. And here's the cruel paradox. She doesn't pull away because you drew boundaries. She pulls away because you didn't. She doesn't lose respect when you stand firm. She loses it when you can't. The very actions you thought would keep her, the endless giving, the constant bending, are the very things that push her out the door. Not devotion, but decay. Not closeness, but suffocation. This is why so many men end up blindsided when she finally leaves. They say, "But I gave her everything. I sacrificed everything. I never said no." Exactly. That's the problem. You thought endless sacrifice was the glue. In reality, it was the acid, eating away at respect, attraction, and love. And the damage doesn't stop with her. It bleeds into every corner of your life. You lose touch with friends who once energized you. You abandon passions that once gave you purpose. You start holding back at work, afraid to take risks, afraid to be noticed. Because if you're small at home, you'll eventually be small everywhere. Silence doesn't just cost you her respect, It cost you your identity. And once you've lost that, the relationship is already over, whether she leaves or not. Because what's left isn't a partnership, it's a prison. And you're the one who built the walls. This is where men break hardest. They convince themselves this is just how love works. They look at their friends' relationships and think, every man must be suffering like this behind closed doors. Wrong. Dead wrong. There are men who figured it out. Men who live with boundaries intact, with respect flowing both ways. They didn't become cold. They didn't become cruel. They simply refused to keep handing away pieces of themselves until nothing was left. And that's the point you're standing at right now. Two paths. Keep silencing yourself until you vanish completely, or speak the truth and risk shaking things up. One path guarantees slow death. The other offers a chance at life. Not just life in your relationship, but life in yourself. Because here's the truth. Silence isn't love. Silence is surrender. Silence is the slow, steady burial of your dignity. And if you don't reclaim your voice now, when will you? If you don't draw the line today, what will be left of you tomorrow? That's why the next step isn't optional. It's urgent. You've seen what happens when men fail to set boundaries. Now you need to see what happens when they finally do. And that's where we turn next. The conclusion. The moment where all of this comes together into a choice only you can make. The truth is undeniable. Silence doesn't keep love alive. It drains it, drop by drop. Every time you bow when you should stand, every time you swallow words that should be spoken, you don't protect your relationship. You bury it. Respect doesn't die the moment you say no. Respect dies the moment you can't. And here's the twist most men never realize. The very boundaries you fear will drive her away are the ones she's been waiting for. She doesn't test you, hoping to break you. She tests you, hoping to see that you won't break. Not because she wants control, but because she wants certainty. Not because she wants to rule you, but because she wants to trust you. That's why right now, you face a choice. You can keep choosing silence, the slow death of your dignity, your passion, and eventually your relationship. Or you can choose the harder path, the one paved with boundaries, clarity, and strength. The path where you stop begging for respect and start commanding it by how you carry yourself. And here's where it gets practical. In the next video, I'll give you a 5-line checklist you can use word for word to draw your lines. A 3-step plan to walk away from fights before they explode. And a reflection exercise to reclaim your values and your limits, so you never lose yourself again. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. That tells me you're not just listening, you're ready to change. Now, I want to hear from you. What's the hardest boundary you've struggled to set in a relationship? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. And if this struck a chord, don't just walk away. Hit subscribe, because the journey doesn't end here. Your crown was never hers to take. It was always yours to wear.